In this bass lesson, you'll learn a kind of hybrid scale that you can use over static funk grooves that sounds really cool, gives you a ton of options that you can use, and is also a bunch of fun to play. Hi, I'm Luke from becomeabassist.com, and this is a question I get asked a fair bit. I get emails, I get comments on my videos, comments on my website. People ask, what kind of scale can I use for funk music? And what I usually say is that for music like funk, the notes are definitely important, but the rhythm is what makes something funky. But then, of course, there's the inevitable reply, well, yeah, but what notes should I actually play? So today I want to kind of show you this hybrid scale that gives you a ton of options if you're playing something funky, and they're all going to work. Now, if you're playing just over a one chord vamp, like a dominant chord, you've actually got a ton of different options that are going to work over it, whether you're making bass lines or improvising. I've got a really simple track here, and it sounds like this. Yeah, the whole thing is just a C7 chord vamp. Our notes in that chord will be C, E, G, and B flat. Now, people say a lot of different things when it comes to playing over these kind of grooves. Some people recommend using the minor pentatonic scale, some say use the blues scale or the Mixolydian mode or the Dorian mode, and these will all work really well in isolation. So check it out, let's try some kind of bassline ideas with each one of these scales. First up, the minor pentatonic, yeah? Super simple. Here we go. 3, 4. Something like that will work really well, works well enough. Right, next let's add the flat 5 to the minor pentatonic, and we'll get a blues scale. Yeah, so let's go. Works well as well. Let's try the Mixolydian mode, so that's this one. Yeah, that works perfectly with the chord. So let's try this just kind of by itself. Something like that works well. The Mixolydian mode is actually the one that works kind of the most technically correct out of all the ones we're talking about, because it has the notes of the chord kind of baked into it. But let's move on now to our Dorian mode. This is another one that can also work really well, and that looks like this. Yeah, and of course you can also go past the kind of top as well. All that kind of stuff, you can go past the top root, that's not a problem at all. But let's make a kind of bassline idea with this Dorian mode. Something like that, that can work really, really well. Now, all these scales can work well by themselves, but the problem is that you're only kind of using one sound, and it might get a bit stale after a while. Yeah, it's like eating the same thing for months or even years on end. Even if the food's delicious, you might get sick of it eventually. However, if you mix all these different sounds together and kind of create like a kind of like Power Rangers Megazord of a scale, you can have a ton of different options that all feel slightly different, so your bass lines or your improvisations, they'll never get boring, and you'll always have something at least a little bit fresh that you can use. So if we took all these scales that we've used so far, the minor pentatonic, the blues scale, Mixolydian and Dorian, and combined them, we'd end up with this. Yeah, it's a 9-note scale: C, D, E flat, E natural, F, F sharp, G, A, and B flat, and of course the high C as well. Now all of these notes were in the isolated scales that we were playing before, so they're all up for grabs now. Now remember that just running scales up and down doesn't usually make the best bass lines or solo lines, but let's mess around with combining all of these different sounds into our hybrid scale. Yeah, let's start with some kind of bass line ideas. 1, 2, 3, that works really well. So we're starting with kind of like a, almost like a Dorian or a mixed Lydian kind of thing, and then going almost like a bluesy thing on the way down. That's kind of cool. Let's try something else. That was a bit rough. That's what I was going for. Okay, so that one was kind of we're kind of starting with a mixed Lydian kind of idea, although we're adding in that F sharp there, and then almost like a Dorian thing on the way out, at the end of the phrase rather. That's what I was going for. Something like that. Yeah, that's all up for grabs. See how we're kind of mixing and matching and sliding between all the different notes of all the different scales? This is exactly what the point of this kind of hybrid scale is. Now, one super common device both in bass lines and solo lines is sliding from the minor third, the E flat in this case, to the major third, the E natural. Now, this E flat isn't technically part of the chord, it's kind of an outside note, but it still sounds nice and dirty, nice and bluesy, and it doesn't sound like a wrong note, yeah? But we can also resolve that note to the major third and it can sound really sweet. So with that kind of idea, we might get something like this. 1, 2, 3, that's kind of cool. I like that. So using the major third and the minor third, going between the two of them, can work really well. Another really cool idea that gets used a ton is jumping from the major sixth, the one that we kind of had in the Dorian and the mixed Lydian scale, and jumping to the minor third that we had in the blues scales and the minor pentatonics and the Dorians as well. So, and from there, going straight to the root like we just did, or doing the slide up to the major third can work really well as well. So let's try some of those ideas. Super, super common. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, spicy. Yeah, sounds really cool, and we would never have been able to do that without combining these into this hybrid scale. Now, if you wanted to, you could even extend this 9-note scale into a 10-note scale really easily by adding the major 7th. It's perfect for approaching the root chromatically, so we'd get this. Yeah? So something like this. 2, 3, 4. Yeah? By itself sounds wrong, but in context, works super well. So the major 7th can work really well as well. So that means that out of the 12 notes in music, we're using 10 of them. The only ones that we aren't using are the flat 2, the note that's right above the root. In this case, it's a D flat, and the flat 6, this A flat right here. So if we have 10 quote-unquote right notes and 2 quote-unquote wrong notes, then you actually have to try pretty hard to find the wrong notes. You've got a 5 out of 6 chance of playing a note that will actually sound good as long as your rhythm and phrasing and everything like that is on point. And so mathematically speaking, you've got like an 83% chance of hitting a right note no matter what you do. And even then, even if you manage to find one of the quote-unquote wrong notes, you can still massage those notes so they'll sound like they fit 100%, just like we did with the major 7th before. Yeah? It's like I say to everyone who asks me what scale to play for funk music, the notes are important, but it's how you play the notes that makes something funky or not. Hopefully though, this kind of hybrid scale has at least given you some options to start with. Now, if all the talk about scales and modes went a little bit over your head, don't worry, that's totally normal, and I have the perfect thing for you. It's called The Ultimate Guide to the Modes for Bass, and you can download it for free from becomeabassist.com. You learn exactly what the modes are, how they work, and exactly where and how to use them in your own bass lines. I worked really hard to make sure that it's easy to understand and not full of, confusing jargon. So if you want to start really understanding how scales and modes work, just click the first link in the description of this video, fill out the form on that page, and I'll send it to you 100% free and of course 100% fun as well. To recap though, you learned a kind of hybrid scale that combined the notes of the minor pentatonic scale, the blues scale, and the mixed Lydian and Dorian modes. And you got a couple of different ideas about how to use them. Plus you also learned that you could easily add a 10th note, the major 7th, and make it work really well. Finally, you also learned that while the notes are important, it was the rhythm and how you played everything that will make something funky or not. Thank you so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. Make sure and head to becomeabassist.com and download that free guide to the modes. And if you haven't already, make sure and subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on so you always get the latest lessons. I'm Luke from becomeabassist.com, and I'll catch you really, really soon.